Hi guys, and welcome to episode 3 of the Northern Rugby Podcast. On today's show we've got USA International and former Newcastle Falcon Nick Civetta with us. So we're going to chat to Nick about all things USA Rugby. That's how it can develop alongside Major League Rugby, how they can produce more top quality players, and how the USA can become a legitimate Tier 1 nation. Nick's also going to talk us through his club career, starting with a spell in Italy, then coming to the UK with Newcastle Falcons and then the Doncaster Knights before playing this past season in France. So let's get straight into it and hear what Nick had to say. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Dan. How are you? Hi, guys.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Nick, just get started by telling us a little bit about the past season. Because obviously, it's been a bit of a mess for everybody involved with COVID and everything that's happened.
Yeah, sure. So I right after the World Cup, I signed in the Pro D2 in France for a team called Rugby Club Van. I went over there, I think the week after I got back from Japan, and then played 5 days later my first match. So it was quite a quick turnaround. Played every week from then on until March when the can you still hear me?
Yes.
So played every week up until March, and then obviously they decided to shut the season down early March. And since then, I've been on, I guess you could call it an extended sabbatical. A pandemic-enforced sabbatical.
So how are you keeping yourself fit without training with the guys? Is it just a case of going for runs, doing some weight sessions? Is there anything more to that?
Sorry, if that's a question again, I think.
So how are you keeping yourself fit since lockdown? Is it just going on runs and doing some weight sessions, or are you doing anything else? Are you training with a local club or anything?
So during the actual lockdown, when I was in France, the first 8 weeks, we were basically locked down in our houses. So I stole a rowing machine from the club gym, put it in my kitchen, and was just doing that pretty much every day, just to keep sane, and then doing push-ups in my living room. But since the end of that, during the summer, my partner and I decided to stay in France. We knew at the time I was going to Oxford in the fall, so we stayed in France for the last few months, and the club was generous enough to let us continue to use their facilities. So I would come in, and the boys would be doing their preseason training, and I just do my lift and do my running, and then head off. So I've been able to keep myself in pretty good shape. We have a program from the US team that we get every day, like through an app. So that's been I guess, one of the main focuses, and then the other focus is preparing for this course I'm about to start. I'm currently in Sunderland, locked down again with my girlfriend and my girlfriend's family. Waiting for the ability to move down to Oxford in a few weeks.
And what's the plan for Oxford?
I'm going to study a master's in science of energy systems. So focus on renewable energy systems, development of the power system, the economics, the policy, and the engineering behind it. So it's an interdisciplinary course. We're doing it over 2 years part-time. So I'm hopefully going to have the opportunity to continue to play rugby on the side. But obviously, I want to get stuck into the course and make sure that I can handle both the Oxford education and the high-level rugby stuff. So we'll see how that shakes out in a few weeks.
Okay, so there's no concrete plans in place for rugby next season as of yet?
There is the potential to play in the MLR in the spring, once my course sort of tapers off. But in the fall now, I think it's going to be tough to find some rugby. I'm going to keep my eyes open for like short-term deals with the Premiership team, because those are really the only clubs in the UK playing.
Yeah.
And hope that if there's a few injuries, that maybe God forbid there's a few injuries, maybe there's an opportunity to play some cup games or something further on into the fall. But with Oxford, I think we'll start training in a few weeks in September, and then at least I'll have a bit of rugby going on the side of school, and then the varsity season will be played in the spring. So there'll be some rugby to play from January to March.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we're trying to piece it together. I mean, it's hard to make plans in the current sort of climate, but
yeah, definitely. I think it's just the unknown, isn't it? I mean, it's not when we're going to be out of this or when we're going to be fully functional again, but at least there's sort of a plan in place to go back to education. Fingers crossed we'll see you in the varsity final against Cambridge, because that's always a brilliant game to watch. You've seen the likes of Jamie Roberts played in it a couple of years ago. Falcons have had a couple. We've had, I think, Andy Saul and Charlie Amesbury have both played in it.
Tom Waldock as well.
Tom Waldock, yeah. So there's a rich history with it.
Yeah, he was the guy who, speaking to him and Sam Edgerton, also a former Falcon, former Oxford guy. Those were the guys who turned me on to the idea of trying to study at Oxford, because they spoke so highly of the experience. So, I'm definitely, I'm thrilled. I think it'll be, if I get to play in varsity, I'm the way the Oxford guys speak about that match is like it's a World Cup final. So,
yeah, definitely. So, sort of your career, because you were. Almost. I mean, you started rugby. Was at 18? You started playing rugby properly. So rugby would have never really been crossed your mind as a career. So how did you sort of get into playing professionally from picking up a ball at 18 to having a career playing for the American national side, playing in England, France, Italy? How did that come about?
I started at 18 in university. At a very social level, it was a lot of fun. I think I fell in love with the sport first, and then I was sort of told by my coaches, a year or two in that I had some potential, and if I wanted to continue to pursue rugby, then they said that there you could have an interesting career. I guess it's at the time I didn't really know where I would go with it, but after I graduated, I did a master's in California. And I played for a men's club side there, and that's where I played my first A-level games with the U.S. national team. So, off the back of that experience, having just moved to New York to start a career in engineering, I met an Italian guy who was playing for my club in New York Athletic Club, and he, had played 10 years in the top division in Italy, and he said, if you want to go to Italy. Maybe I can sort something out. So I didn't hear from him for about 6 months. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't expect anything to happen. Then he called me up one afternoon and was like, hey, so I got this contract here for you. If you want to go play in the Italian top division, you can leave in a month and they'll pay you, I think it was, €1,200 a month and give you a house and a car. And that's that. And I without hesitation, I said yes. I quit a very, very good job and moved overseas to start what would be, what's been sort of a 7-8 year journey on, 3 different countries, 6-7 different clubs, just trying to make a go of it. And I mean, you need a little bit of luck to get where you want to go. And it's been one hell of a journey, and I'm really glad I said yes to that contract, because at the end of the day, there's no guarantee it was going to pay off. But, from my point of view, I've been able to achieve what I've wanted to achieve and, play for the U.S. and play in a World Cup. So, I mean, it's been a hugely rewarding couple of years.
And Nick, what were your first impressions of the style of rugby when you first moved to Italy?
It was very, very different from U.S. club rugby, which was, largely, I guess, disorganized. And Italian rugby was very set piece focused at the time. So, for me as a 22, 23-year-old who never really played much high level rugby, it was the scrums and the lineouts were definitely a step up. Beyond that, the ability to link 4 or 5 passes together in Italy was still a valued skill at the time. So I wouldn't say it's the most skillful league of rugby, but for me the physicality was definitely a step up, and definitely took some getting used to. It's good. I mean, Italian rugby is the club game in Italy is in a difficult place now, obviously with COVID, and then even before that, there just isn't much money in it. So
it's always been a bit of a tough one, Italy, because what they've been in the Six Nations for about 20 years now, and they haven't sort of made that people would have thought. Do you think sort of having the inclusion of Zebra and Treviso in the Pro 14, do you think that helps the game, or do you think it maybe hinders the game because the rest of the club, the rest of the domestic league isn't as, the standard isn't there as much?
That's a tough question. I think the club game is like essentially dead now. Like, I've spoken to my friends there, and it was dying when I was there. And like, they're really, even at the top levels, like, you'll find better rugby, I think, in the MLR by a decent jump. I think there's a decent jump between the top level of Italian domestic championship and in the MLR now. But yeah, I think that they've really tried to centralize everything. So they pulled all the talent away from the domestic clubs from like a young age. So all these guys go into like the national academies, where they do their high school and they train full time, and they play in Serie A. So there's like a national academy that plays in the second division of club rugby, and then from there the best players go on to Zebra and Treviso. So it seems like a pretty streamlined process, and they have a ton of money. Like the union itself has a ton of money, but they haven't been able to put it together. And I'm not there now. I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I hope they do. I hope they do, because it is a sport that the country is passionate about, and they deserve success.
And Nick, then how did the move to the Falcons from Italy come about?
Oh, honestly, I have no idea. I've absolutely no idea. Well, I was playing for a club in Florence. I was working at the time as like a research assistant at the university, and it was basically, I was part-time. I was training, pretty hard individually, and really enjoying myself. And then I had just gotten my Italian passport, which I think helped. And then I had a Scottish agent, or still have a Scottish agent, and he just like texted me one day and was like, there's a team in the Premiership that wants to sign you. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. Literally out of the blue, and jumped at that opportunity as well. And I guess, like, honestly, in sport, sometimes you need a little bit of blind luck. And obviously Dean and the Newcastle staff saw something in me, and I was I was thrilled. So you probably have to ask Dean what he saw, because
And what were your impressions of Newcastle as a club and as a city?
Oh, as a city, it's a wonderful place. I loved it. Vibrant. It's a bit cold for my liking, but a lot of stuff going on. Good food, good people. I love the club as well. For me, it was a huge step up from the amateur rugby I'd been playing for the past 3 years. So definitely the learning curve was very steep. But everyone at the club was wonderful. The guys are great. I still keep in touch with a lot of the guys, and the 2 years from a rugby point of view definitely didn't pan out as I'd hoped. But as far as giving me the exposure to get back into the U.S. national side, definitely accomplished that, and that was always my end goal. So I'm really pleased that I was able to get back into the team and then hold on to my place for a couple of years.
Good stuff. And I wanted to ask you a quick question about USA Rugby, because
sure,
I think every rugby fan would love the idea of a USA team that could regularly compete with the top tier 1 nations.
So would I.
Yeah. And it seems like all the kind of raw materials are there. Like you produce the world-class athletes on a regular basis. You've got the infrastructure. The budget seems to be there. You've got the fan base as well. So what's, in your eyes, what does the USA need to kind of push on to that next level?
That's a tough question. I could probably talk about for a long time. Well, right now the union is still dealing with bankruptcy, so we need to come out of that in a positive place. I think the development of the MLR, and then the regionalization amongst the MLR teams of like an academy system would be hugely helpful. So, you've seen a few MLR teams jump into their local communities and start these pretty robust academy systems. San Diego is one team that's done a really good job of like building a rugby brand in San Diego. They pack out their stadium, they have their players, coaching kids around the city, a lot like the Falcons Community Foundation. Like, they're really well integrated into the San Diego community, and you can see the success on the field is helped, and then commercially, it's building. It's an actual thing in San Diego that people have heard of. So if every MLR club jumps into that and really puts in the money and the effort, then I think down the line, 5-10 years from now, the U.S. can be a true power. I think, listen, we have an incredible amount of talent now, and there's nothing to say that in the next few years, we can't start to see better results. But it's going to come from, the development of youth rugby, and the shifting a lot of funds into development of youth rugby from the MLR teams, and then as a union, USA Rugby needs to foster that development and work hand in hand with the MLR to build a wider base of well-prepared youth players, who can make the decision at the age of 20, 21, when they finish university or even out of high school, that they can go directly into professional environment, which would be invaluable.
Yeah. And I remember a couple of years ago, I watched the USA play Scotland in a match that you played in.
Yeah.
And I believe this was your first ever win over a Tier 1 nation.
Since 1924. That was a massive win for us. Incredible experience to be a part of. And that year for us was, we experienced a lot of success. I think we won 10 test matches and lost one, losing to Ireland in the fall. And you sort of started to see, our recipe start to come together that year, because, we played a very consistent squad. We stuck to a very consistent game plan, and we actually started to build, a bit of, cohesion. You look at the best test sides in the world, and like, you had guys who played, 100 matches of rugby together in the same team, for New Zealand, for England, for Ireland. And like, you look at the States, and we have guys who like maybe have only played 100 games of rugby in their entire rugby career, since they played small. So the difference is massive. So if we can get over the next couple of years, assuming that COVID stops becoming a problem, if we can get the same group of guys, the same player pool of say 50 guys together, constantly playing games together, and like build a bit of cohesion where, let's say I'm playing second row with Greg, who's at Falcons now. And like, we play the next 25 games together, or me, him, and two other guys like are constantly on the field together. Like, that's what's going to take us to the next level, I think. So it's just something that is tough to accomplish as a tier 2 nation, because, guys' careers are just different, because, sometimes they're semi-pro, sometimes they're pro. And now with the MLR, everyone's a professional. So something we can hopefully get to in the next couple of years.
Do you think that exposure, do you think it just comes from playing tier 1 nations as well? So, instead of the USA playing, Canada and Brazil and so on, do you think it's maybe throw them in the deep end and say, right, let's get an island touring the USA, or let's get maybe an England coming over and playing a game in the USA? Because you've seen the success. I mean, you saw Ireland played New Zealand in Chicago, which seemed like a big success. Do you think it's a case of maybe getting a few of these tier 1 nations over and playing?
It's getting them over consistently as well.
I
think there's a directive in World Rugby now that every tier 2 nation is supposed to have eight tier 1 test matches in a 4-year period. And there's some chat about whether or not that includes World Cup games. A lot of the tier 2 nations will obviously argue that it shouldn't, because, then that cuts off 2 or 3 year matches right there.
Yeah.
But like, it's super important, to be involved in, a higher level competition. So right now, our flagship competition in the Americas is the Americas Rugby Championship. And you look at it, with the teams in it currently, and the fact that, now Argentina don't have Super Rugby, there's a good chance, or I'm hopeful that they decide that they're going to play their full test side in the Americas Rugby Championships, so that every year we'd have a test match against Argentina. Who we never play a full test side. So like for them to throw their lot in with us and play in this Americas Rugby Championship would raise the profile massively. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's wishful thinking. And then beyond that, with the development of the global calendar, you hope that you see tier 2 nations like us and Japan, hardly a tier 2 nation now. Fiji, Canada, like you hope to see more opportunities for us to play tier 1 nations, because that's what makes a difference at the end of the day.
Good stuff, great. Just in terms of, you've mentioned quite a bit about the Major League Rugby, and it's kind of in its infancy at the minute. I've watched a bit of it myself, and I think the standard is actually way above where it should be. It's very good to watch. Yeah. But as someone with Premiership and Championship experience, try and explain to us just where the standard of the MLR is right now.
It's honestly, it's like no other rugby in the world, in the sense that you have, the American guys who play in that league are all ridiculous athletes, Premiership quality athletes, and some of them who have a lot of rugby experience and some of them don't. So like you'll see guys like who just look like they belong on an NFL field, and like they can't pass off their left hand, so they just like run straight through blokes. And then you'll see massive amounts of skill. So like you watch some games and you're like, this is faster than the Premiership, and then you watch some games and you're like, this is just like amateur rugby. So it really varies week to week. But like one thing's for certain is that the level of athleticism and the fitness of guys is massive, and it's probably in terms of standard, like if you put an MLR team up against the top level championship team, I think it'd be a good match. And some of these sides now, if you look at San Diego side from last year or New York side from last year, like there's real international quality in every part of the squad. So like every year, I think they're going to keep on getting better and better players in.
And is the tactic to try and keep bringing in or kind of poaching these European stars? Like obviously Chris Robshaw's coming in this year. You've had Ben Foden come in, Bastero, Manonu. Does that help, or would you rather see more kind of American and Canadian talents being developed?
Well, I think there's room for both, honestly. Like these big names, there's not a lot of names like this. Like there's only a few of them who've come in. You need people like that to raise the profile, but you need the right type of guy who is willing to develop American players in his role as a player. So hopefully Chris Robshaw ends up being like that in San Diego. I know Ben Foden has been great for New York and for developing American players in New York, but the vast majority of the guys will still be American guys. And I think there's a cap on foreign players of, I believe, 10 per side. And I'm pretty sure that's in the match day 23. Although
okay, that's quite good.
Don't quote me on that. I think there's got to be a balance, and for an infant league, for a league in its infancy, you want to see it attract big names. Like Pele played in the MLS back in the 70s when the MLS was just starting out, and that would obviously have been a huge draw for people. So to get Maunanu in, to get Chris Robshaw in, Bastero as well, Foden, it's definitely a good sign that is an attractive league. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of the squads will be made up of American players.
Okay, and talk to us a little bit about the 2019 World Cup and your experience in Japan. What did you make of that? It was for me personally, it was a dream come true to get there. It was in doubt a bit. I dislocated my ankle 8 weeks before the World Cup, and then raced to recover to get back to play against England, and was able to do it. So it was a trying time for me, mentally and physically. But to get there and to be there with my family personally was a dream come true. Beyond that, I think as a team, we weren't particularly happy with our performances. We'd spent the vast majority of the summer together. And I think we held ourselves to a higher standard than what we produced on the field. So, you were in a very tough group, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's the World Cup. Every group is tough, and I think we knew what group we were in for 2 years. We knew pretty much who we were going to play for 2 years, and we failed to fire the shots that we wanted to fire. So, looking forward to the next one, I think we certainly have some unfinished business. We want to build a bit of a buzz around us in pool play and get some results. But I think if you talk to any of the guys, if you talk to Greg or if you talk to any Eagle, they'll tell you that, on the field, weren't particularly happy with our performances.
That's fair enough. I mean, like you say, there's always the build towards 2023 or even 2027, where USA have put a bid in to host. Is that right?
I'm not sure if we've officially put a bid in. I think it's either 2027 or 2031 that they're thinking about bidding. And, honestly, I think it would be absolutely incredible for the US to host the World Cup. As long as there's a long enough buildup, if there's 10 years between when we know we're going to host and when we host, then that's enough time for big businesses to see that, their capital investment will pay off, and, they could actually grow rugby as a sport, in a similar way that Japan did in the last 5-10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think it could potentially, you'd have a bit of a swing of which sports people play when they're sort of 17, 18? Because you look at a lot of the guys that have played for either USA, and yourself included, USA 7s or full 15s, they've come from backgrounds of American football. You look at Carlin Isles, who's a sprinter, Perry Baker as well. Leslie for Quins came from American football as well. Do you think there might be if you say, right, 2031, we've got a World Cup we're hosting in the States, do you think there'll be a big sway of maybe youngsters getting involved in rugby and saying, I want to be playing in that Rugby World Cup? Or do you think rugby's a bit, it's very far behind the likes of, for participation levels, for the likes of American football and other sports?
That's a tough question. I think if kids have access to the sport in high school, say from the age of 13 onwards, and then during that time they see that there's the potential to pursue it as a career, then they'll stick with it. Right now, I wouldn't say that rugby is a sport available to a majority of high school students in the country. So until kids can start playing at a younger age, I don't see the participation numbers in adult rugby and professional rugby really increasing. But if you have a World Cup to look forward to, and with the World Cup comes huge sponsors and a huge influx of cash from World Rugby. So if you get huge American company backing rugby and saying, what, like, I want to see the US perform well, like, I'm going to buy the MLR, and I'm going to sponsor the MLR for 10-20 million a year, whatever it is, and inject cash into it, then that's where growth can spur, and you start to see dividends pay off down the line.
Yeah, that would be quite nice. Do you think there would be any kind of long-term benefit to the MLR kind of spreading out? Would the likes of like an intercontinental competition benefit anybody at this time, do you think?
Right now, maybe not. Right now, I mean, we can't even travel, so I would love to see like an MLR All-Stars team, play the Eagles, or play a touring side, a bit like a North American Barbarians. Maybe you get the best of the MLR, the best of Argentina and Uruguay.
That's a good idea.
But as far as entering into an international competition, I think the MLR is going to be the competition. So I think there's potential maybe to get down the road more teams from the Americas in the MLR. So maybe a Uruguayan team and an Argentinian team and a few more Canadian teams, and make it like a kind of like a Super Rugby where it spans half the globe. But again, like that proved to not be particularly viable for Super Rugby, because it's it's in a contraction now. So we'll see.
And I suppose same kind of question for the national side. Like if you had a bit of a blank slate and we could rebuild the whole international kind of calendar, where would you see the USA fitting in? Would you keep the Americas Championship, or would you build a brand new tournament for the likes of the USA and Canada?
Well, honestly, I think the Americas Rugby Championship is well built. I think we need to like build our own market out. So rugby in the Americas needs to be on display. So I think that's good. If obviously, as I said before, if we can get an Argentina test side in it, that'd be massive. As far as the calendar goes, like we want to make sure we're in a position to play the best games we possibly can. So the most tier 1 teams per year. And, you hear all these rumblings about new competitions, the potential for the 8 nations this fall, which might not happen. And then, the potential for a yearly world championship. Like obviously we'd love to be included in those sorts of competitions. And, as well, we want to, see a global calendar that works with the MLR. So, to have American players available for the entirety of the MLR season and then to play their international season outside of the MLR would make sense. So, yeah. Granted, I don't think we are the most powerful seat at the table when it comes to making these decisions. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it works out in the end. But just another quick question for you, Nick, about Gary Gould, because he's an ex-Falcon as well. What's your what's your thoughts on him?
I think he's great. I think he's been great for us, our development. He's very, very detail oriented. He's a data analyst at heart, which I love as an engineer. So he shows you the data, explains why we're doing what we're doing, and then you're like, okay, I believe in this, I'll go do it. So I think he's been good for the development. The people he's surrounded himself with have been particularly good as well. So we've had our best years with him so far. He's still with us today. With the future being so uncertain for World Rugby and for USA Rugby, I hope he sticks with us. But he's been I've enjoyed working for him. I hope to continue to work for him in the future.
Good stuff. And Nick, you're off to Oxford in the autumn. But what's the kind of post-career plans? What are you looking to do after rugby's gone?
Well, I hope that this degree sort of helps me focus a bit on where I want to go. I know I want to work in renewable energy, which is an incredibly broad field. I think currently my interests lie sort of within the civil development aspect of that, because of my background as a civil engineer. So working, with large developments to implement like the most progressive sort of energy innovations and energy reduction innovations like into the development. Like that's where my mind is at now. I'm not sure if that's where it's going to be after this degree. I can see myself going a lot of different directions, but additionally, I think I'd like to work in New York, or my hometown. So to see a development of new energy technology there would be hugely important, and something that I think would be a great career to have, career with purpose. So
good stuff. And do you think you'll stick keep going with rugby at any point? Would you like to do any kind of coaching or mentoring for younger players?
I think down the line I will. Like I want to be involved with rugby in the US, and I want to help it grow where I can. So I'm not sure what that'll look like, but yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the sport, and I want to see my country succeed in it. So I'd be happy to. I would love to get involved.
Excellent. Well, Nick, how we normally finish with these is we like to do what's called an ultimate 15.
Sure.
So that can be the best players that you've played with throughout your career, and our only rule is that you have to be in the team yourself. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and stick you in the second row, if that's all right.
That's fine with me.
So just start with whatever position you want. Let us know who's the best you've ever played with.
The best or my favorite?
Oh well, both actually.
Yeah,
it can be.
Well, all right. Well, we'll give it a go here. We'll give it a go. I think we'll create sort of a mixed side.
Hybrid.
Hybrid, yeah. Best loose head prop I played with, probably Robin Hislop at Doncaster. Guy is just an absolute monster in the scrums and like such a handful around the park. Yeah, he's an impressive player. Hooker's got to be Joe Taufete at his best. He's just a beast. Throws a great ball, rarely misses, which is what I appreciate as a
Makes your life easier, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Makes me look good. Makes him look good. And keeps us both on the pitch. Tight head prop, I'm going to have to say John Welsh, Falcons legend, simply because he only speaks to me in a Bronx Italian accent, which
is it good?
It's actually excellent. It's actually excellent. I was trading voice notes with him yesterday. He hasn't lost a beat.
We'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah, you have to. Second row would have to be Samu Manoa, who's just like an absolute monster. Like, you play with him and, everything just becomes easier, just fearless. And then I guess myself. And 6, I'd pick Ben Landry, American second row, back row. Like, the guy just loves just a massive tackle. He's a former NFL player. He played in Ealing for a little while. He just such a big hitter. It was just so fun to watch, just absolutely mash people. 7, I'll go with Mark Wilson, because he's just a machine.
Yeah, good shot.
Number 8, that's a tricky question. I really liked Ali Hogg as a player. He was just like classy operator. Just smart, didn't make many mistakes. I played quite a lot with him on Monday nights during our time in Newcastle.
Yeah, he is a hell of a player, and he's still close to a club now. He's a really good guy.
Yeah. Number 9, Sean Davies, the tiny guy from the US. He's absolutely awesome player, really smart, just like great boot on him. He yells and screams the whole game. Fun to play with. 10, got to be AJ McGinty. Absolutely
fantastic player, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought it would be cracking player.
Yeah, absolutely awesome. Centers, I'll probably go Paul Lusike, who's a beast, for Quins.
What's he? Have you ever had to tackle him in training? What's it like trying to stop him?
I just don't. That's like first phase. Whoever gets to tackle him first phase, it's typically not my responsibility. But he's tough, man. His feet are so good, and he's so powerful. Like, when he came into camp his first time, there was some rumblings that they were going to play him at prop, because he was about 130 kilos at the time, 120 kilos, and he could have done it. He could have just played him at prop, and now he'd be playing probably in the Premiership at prop. So he's just such a good athlete. Obviously, his background is rugby originally, and then over to the US to play football in college, and then back to rugby after a couple of years in the NFL. So, he's got to be in the team. He's been recently tearing it up for Quins.
Yeah,
he has. Yeah,
since the restart, he looks like he's put on a lot more muscle, if it was possible. And he's running through guys that are probably 115 kilos themselves, and he's just making them look like school kids.
Yeah. And imagine as well, he was in the NFL for 2 or 3 years, and he was moderately successful. Imagine if you had the best running backs in the NFL, making up the back line of a U.S. national team. It's just.
Do you think there's ever a sort of a possibility of a few more coming over to rugby, or vice versa? We've seen the likes of Christian Wade go over, try and give that a go. But do you think there's potential for more, maybe sort of squad NFL players to come over and say, look, I've had a half decent career in the NFL. Let's, I want to play for the US national rugby side.
I think so. I think what the turnaround is too quick, because these guys are 26, 27. It doesn't take it takes a couple of years to get to a level of rugby player where you can be effective at a high level. So ideally you want the guys while they're in college, while they're 16, 17, 18, to make the transition then and say, you know what, I'm not going to play football. Like a guy like Saul Muching, who plays at San Diego. Played for the U.S. a few times. He was going to be a first or second round draft pick in the NFL, and he grew up in Hawaii. He played rugby in Hawaii growing up, and he was like, you know what, I want to be a rugby player. And played six for the U.S. a few times. He's been absolutely tearing it up for San Diego Legion, and he's the quality of athlete. It was just so explosive and so strong that you'd want to see numbers.
Is there any sort of is there any sort of links between the US national rugby side and the NFL? Is there any sort of coaching that's done between the two? Because sort of fundamentally, being an athlete and the physicality of it and the speed of it, they're reasonably similar. Is any sort of cross-contamination between the two? Do you do anything with any NFL sides?
There's a business in the US that was originally called Cerevi. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
It was Cerevi has changed its name to Atavis. They're not associated directly with USA Rugby, but they've sponsored some teams in the past. And they now are like a huge, like they coach like tackling technique for NFL teams, for college teams, and for high school teams. And they've become a massive company where they teach head behind tackling. Because in football, you're basically taught from year one, just use your helmet, bash your head into the other guy, and hurt him as much as possible. And it's idiotic. So they've actually had a lot of success, changing the way kids learn how to tackle, and professionals learn how to tackle. They've worked a lot with the Seahawks. And I know Pete Carroll, the Seahawks coach, has brought in some Seawolves guys to work with Seattle Seawolves guys to work with their team on their tackling technique. So there definitely is room for more collaboration, and you'd love to see USA Rugby get involved with that sort of stuff as well.
Good stuff. Back to the team then. Who's your 13?
13, Marcel Brocky, Super Rugby, USA. Great guy. Character only. He's the captain. That's what I'm saying. I'm basically just picking a US team here. It's pretty boring. I'll go left wing would be Nicky Ganova.
Yeah, of course it is.
Just like naturally one of the best players like you'll ever see. Humblest guy.
He makes rugby look easy, doesn't he?
Yeah, just like no one else I've ever seen. Right wing, Mikey Teo, young USA player. I hopefully see him burst onto the professional scene in the next few years. Really, really talented. Very, very physical winger. Great skills under the high ball. And then finish it off fullback, Simon Hammersley. Excellent player, mistake-free.
He's sadly left us now. He's gone down to Seal.
He's playing some good rugby though, isn't he?
Yeah. But you're right. He was great under the high ball. He had excellent feet. And he was very dependable as well, Simon.
Yeah. That's as a forward, that's what you want, because you don't want to be chasing back to like a dropped kick or something, or you just want someone who's going to catch the ball and kick it back.
It's not a bad team you've put together though.
Yeah, I think it's all right. Yeah.
Nice balance of Newcastle Falcons in there as well, so that's always good.
Yeah. Well, you got to play to your audience. A little bit of Doncaster, a little bit of US.
Well, yes. Well, Nick, as I say, thanks for coming on, and it's been good to chat. I'm always interested in USA Rugby and where it's going to go, and hopefully we can see it develop. Going forward. Good luck down in Oxford in the autumn time. Hopefully it all goes well.
Good luck to you guys as well. I hope everything comes together after this pandemic lifts, whenever that is.
Exactly, and hopefully we'll see you either in the Premiership or the Pro 14. Hopefully you'll get yourself a part-time contract.
That's such a thing. I'm hoping. So we'll see.
So, but yes, thanks very much. All the best, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much, Nick.
Cheers, guys. Have a good day.
Cheers, Nick.
Bye.
Some interesting thoughts on USA Rugby from Nick Civetta. What do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. I think they're just a sleeping giant, aren't they? I think he's right. If they have a goal to work towards, like the 2031 World Cup, I think you'll really see them develop into a Tier 1 country. At the minute, I think they're just at that sort of stagnant level where they're yet to really grow into that side that they probably should be. I mean, you look at the athletes over in America, they have the best physical athletes in the world. If they can start training them in a rugby sense, you'll have a world superpower in 10, 15 years.
And we've had a few USA internationals at the Falcons over the years. Some have been hits, some have been misses. What do we need to get more of their players in the Premiership?
I think it's a tough one because you look at sort of Nick's story and how he fell into a career in Italy and then fell into a career in at the Falcons just sort of unexpectedly. I think what you need is a strong domestic game over there. He spoke quite highly about a lot of these lads, sort of tearing it up in the MLR. Give the MLR another couple of years and sort of sprinkle a few more internationals like your Nonus and Rob Shaws and Fodens in there, and it starts to become a very marketable league, which will then in turn you'll certainly see a lot more of the players come over and try Europe out. So there's a lot of talent over there, and it is just a bit of an untapped market. So the bigger the MLR gets, certainly it'll be a good thing for sort of European rugby, picking up a few of the States lads.
We've tried in England to kind of break United States. We had those games. The Falcons obviously went to play Saris, and there were a few more as well. Didn't go that well, but it might be better. I mean, we talked to Nick there about possibly having some kind of intercontinental competition. Would it work if, even in the off season, if English Premiership teams went to play like a mini tournament in the USA against the MLR teams?
I think it needs to come from that global calendar. It's not going to happen at the minute. Players just play too much to sprinkle another, San Diego versus Harlequins. I'd love to see it because I think it would be a big test for these lads, and it would certainly help the English game develop as well and the European game develop. I think when he mentioned the Barbarian side having an MLR All-Stars, I'd love to see that because I think they would give a lot of Premiership sides a good go.
Absolutely.
Even if it's not Premiership, even if they play someone like an Argentina or maybe a touring side like Scotland coming over, I think that would be brilliant. The All-Star sides in basketball, American football, soccer, they're always quite successful in America, which I've always found quite strange, and I've found it quite strange how we don't do it over here. I think the Premiership All-Star sides against an MLR All-Star sides would be a decent game.
Absolutely. Very interesting space. I think it's imperative for World Rugby that the USA, well, not just the USA, but them, Canada, Argentina continue to grow as well. Brazil, all these sides come in and kind of push the tier one sides because we need more teams like that. We need them to grow. But USA seem to be the ones with the drive, the infrastructure, and the money to do it. So hopefully we can see them grow towards the next World Cup. But that's it for episode 3. So thanks very much to Nick for coming on to speak with us. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed listening once again. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter at North Rugby Pod. You can follow us on Anchor. We're now on Spotify and iTunes as well. So thanks very much, and we'll see you guys next time.
Cheers.